Hey, night wanderers, grab your blanket, dim whatever light is still glowing in the corner of the room, and let the phantom flicker of your screen be the only campfire we need. Before we dive into a cold, salt-sprayed century where axes flashed and longships creaked, do me the small favor of tapping that like button, quietly so the neighbors don't wonder, and scribble a comment telling me where you're listening from and what ungodly hour your clock just confessed. Subscriptions are the runes that keep this channel rode forward, so if you vibe with late-night history rambles, hit that bell like it owes you silver, all right? Good. Tug your furs tighter, because tonight we're crawling into the half-lit dreams of Viking warriors, searching the smoky corners of their minds for the nightmares that squeezed their lungs the night before battle. Imagine it. You're lying on a straw-stuffed pallet inside a longhouse that smells of pine resin, wet wool, and yesterday's hearth fire. Outside, the fjord is nothing but black glass, mirroring a sagging sky of northern stars. Somewhere to your left, another warrior snores, a low, throaty grind, while to your right, someone whispers a prayer to Thor, scraping a knife against a whetstone, more for comfort than sharpness. And you keep shifting, pressing numb fingertips into the rough tatters of the blanket that your mother wove the winter you first held a wooden sword. Tomorrow's raid hums like a wolf at the door. You steel your jaw. You try to steady your breath. But sleep begins its ambush anyway, and with it come the visions, visceral, dripping, as loud as any skald's saga. Those visions usually arrive in 3 waves. First, the drowning dream. Scholars digging through the poetic Edda and later Icelandic sagas have mapped out something that feels eerily like a shared cultural nightmare: water swallowing you whole. Vikings weren't landlocked farmers. They were sea people who could taste salt in every loaf of bread. Their mythic world hatched from brine. Think of Aegir, the personified ocean who throws ale-drenched feasts for the gods. But that also meant the sea was the appetite that could eat you at any moment. In their dreams, the longship's hull rips like parchment. Freezing waves slam the deck. You grapple for rope, but it spirals away, a serpent sliding through numb fingers. The cold is so total it steals language. Even the word help freezes on your tongue. Then silence. Your chest thrums, seeking air that isn't there. You jolt awake in the longhouse, the dream water dripping from your beard that isn't actually wet. Somewhere near the hearth, a hound lifts its head, sensing fear like smoke. Wave 2 rides straight in after you've forced your eyes closed again, the berserker visitation. Modern movies show Viking rage as automatic, a switch flipped, eyes glassy, froth on the lips. But written sources hint at an uglier backstage, a place where warriors worried that the spirit of the berserker could grab them unwilling. In the fluid dark of sleep, you feel fur sprout across your arms, hear your own heartbeat become bare fast and clawing. You taste blood, whose you don't know. Loved ones blur with enemies until the difference evaporates. When you stagger up gasping, you find your hands clenched so tightly around an imaginary hilt that your nails have drawn crescents of blood in your palms. Some nights, the older men tie rawhide strips around their wrists as a pact. If you thrash too wildly, the bindings cut and wake you, saving the man snoring beside you from your dream-drunk fists. The third wave, arguably the most unsettling, is the visitation of the dead. Vikings lived inside concentric circles of obligation: kin, crew, ancestors. Breaking faith with any layer risked being named Neithinger, a person without honor. In nightmares, the dishonored ancestors don't yell, they just watch. Apples of rot on hollow cheeks, seaweed knotted through hair, mute condemnation heavier than a helm. A warrior might wake choking, sure he'd swallowed grave dirt. The smell of damp soil might cling to his beard hours after dawn, even when there's none on the floor. Pause a moment. Hear the wax crackle in the torch bracket overhead? Hear the wet wood hiss? All this dread fermented in an age before anesthesia, before therapy couches, before melatonin gummies. You dealt with panic using ritual. So, after a night of terror, a Viking might roll from his pallet and find the skald or the godi, the local priest, and recount the visions while everyone else dozed. Not because they wanted comfort exactly, but because words could trap shadows. Say the fear aloud, and maybe Odin's ravens would carry it off across the water. Now, let's widen the frame and track these nightmares into day. Dawn limps up with a low, whale-gray light. Warriors rise in a fog of sleep sweat. They chew strips of cured fish because they believe an empty gut invites cowardice. Someone pours out sour goat milk as an offering, muttering that Aegir or Ran might spare the ship if properly bribed. You, still rattled by the drowning dream, watch that milk seep into the dirt like a final breath, and you wonder if it will be enough. Along the shoreline, longships squat like predators, prows carved into dragons whose open jaws gulp invisible bursts of morning fog. Carving those beasts wasn't just decoration, it was psychological warcraft. Legends insisted that demons, trolls, and the spirits of enemy coastlines could be tricked or terrified by the right wooden face. But every Viking knew that a carving could also devour its maker in dreams. Wood remembers. The same beak meant to frighten monks in Lindisfarne might just as easily turn inward at night, scraping talons along the corridors of your mind, reminding you that the sea always gets payment. So the nightmares keep echoing, even while you load barrels of beer, salted lamb, and spare shields into the hull. Scholars examining runic inscriptions on grave goods have found scratched pleas. "May the sea be mild," or "Spare my sons." We read them as anthropological data, but imagine wielding the knife yourself, carving that wretched hope into oak because you're certain words are spells and fear is fuel. Every chip of wood that curls away carries a sliver of your anxiety. By the time you shove off, the fjord's surface is calm, yet beneath the keel, your dream still kicks like a snared fish. Let's linger inside that longship for a heartbeat. Rowers sit shoulder to shoulder, 20 on a side, thighs cramping against bench edges polished smooth by decades of voyages. Each rower knows the rhythm: dip, pull, breathe, dip, pull. But rhythm can't expel memory. A man 3 benches ahead hums the first bars of Drum de Micken Drum I Not, one of the oldest Scandinavian tunes, later preserved as a margin doodle in a medieval manuscript. His humming threads through the slap of paddles, and for a moment your heart slows. Music, even half remembered, is ballast against fear. If the dead lean close, maybe they'll stop to listen. Above, the sail unfurls, dyed a red so dark it could be dried liver. Sailcloth wasn't cheap, it was status and a canvas for superstition. Some chieftains ordered knots sewn into hems, claiming each knot captured a favorable gust of Njord's breath. Untie one at the right moment, and the wind would roar free. Untie the wrong one, and the storm would smell fear on you like blood. Nightwares had rules. You either mastered them or became them. By midday, the coastline fades, and the horizon becomes a scraped knife blur. Men trade stories to keep dread at bay. One swears he saw Draugr, sea revenants, wandering near the shallows last winter, dragging chains made of clinking fish bones. Another claims the great serpent Jormungandr curls just out of sight, bigger than imagination, its scales catching sun like broken mirrors. The talk isn't mere entertainment, it's rehearsal. Naming terrors is an attempt to shrink them, but also to respect them. Because if you mock the sea monster too brazenly, you invite it to surface. Let me pull you back to the Longhouse for a scholarly aside, the kind that helps you win pub trivia, or at least drop smug knowledge in the comments. Archaeologists studying burial mounds in Norway found small lead amulets etched with miniature runic prayers, then folded into tiny packets. These were likely carried by living warriors as sleep charms. The fold mattered. It kept the magic compressed. Unfold it, and the words spilled loose like trapped light, flaring just long enough to banish a bad dream. Close it again, tuck it inside your tunic, and maybe tonight your sleep would run quiet. But iron law of nightmares, protection never lasts forever. Flash again tonight. You're anchored off a foreign coast, tide snoring against the hull. Raiding happens at dawn, so there's this liminal hush, like the pause before a heartbeat that sits heavy on every deck. The squad ties down shields. Helmets double as pillows. Someone whispers that you mustn't sleep with iron by your head because elves will steal your breath. Another retorts that iron wards off elves. Both men fall silent, nursing their chosen truths. You lie back, staring at the sail overhead, and the weave looks suddenly like a net lowering onto you, a perfect image to lure back the drowning dream. But tonight it mutates. Now you're pinned beneath an overturned boat, lungs burning. Above the surface, muffled voices call your name, but they blur into gull cries. Your chest cracks, water presses in. Just before blackness, something drags you deeper, not to kill, but to carry. A woman's face, half scaled like a fish, regards you with eyes that reflect storms. Ran, sea goddess and corpse collector, according to myth. She smiles as gently as any mother. Then she opens her net like a gate, and you tumble into a hall of drowned warriors, where feasting tables float mid-current, and shields spin overhead like lazy moons. You wake thrashing, knocking a comrade's helmet across the deck. No moon here, only a thin line of pale sky hinting dawn. He swears at you. You mutter apology, but inside the image clings, feasting while dead, an honor but also a trap. See, Valhalla wasn't the only destination. Some ended in hell, a realm cold as old iron. Others joined Rand's swirling banquet. Choice wasn't always tied to heroism. Sometimes fate was weirdly arbitrary. So each nightmare could be a prophecy, and prophecy could be bent if you faced it correctly. Superstition or not, you need every edge. Quick reality break. Notice your modern room again, listeners. Sense your sheets, the faint hum of appliance electricity, comfort undreamed by our Viking. But keep one foot in his boat, because here comes the morning of battle. Shoreline bristles with heather and wet sand. The village beyond sleeps unaware. Before spears lift, there's a ritual, the raven test. Someone tosses bread on a shield, sets it on a stump. If the raven lands and eats, Odin approves. If it ignores, some chieftains postpone the raid. Others press on, but every warrior who saw the omen will carry that silence like lead in the gut. Imagine you saw it ignore today. That memory nests under your breastbone, beside the drowning dream, the berserker fear, the ancestors stare. You feel like a hall of mirrors, reflecting nothing but doom. Yet the war horn blares, feet trump, you sprint, breath frosting. Adrenaline punches nightmare aside, temporarily. Axes crash, screams ignite. There's a moment cleaving through a roof beam when time thins. All those dreams blur with daylight carnage. Water roar becomes blood roar. Ancestor stares become enemy eyes. You're inside a living nightmare, but waking, you can control things. Swing harder, shout prayers, stay alive. The raid ends fast. Most did. Fire licks rooftops, loot piles in sacks. Survivors stagger back to the boats. Hands shake, not from cold, but the echo of seeing yourself kill. Nightmares will season that memory for years. But that's tomorrow's sorrow. For now, mead gets passed. Victors slap backs. You try to drink, but the cup smells like seawater. Rand's net still dangles in your mind. At journey's end, home hearths roar welcome. Yet nightmares hitchhike back. The sagas mention old warriors waking, screaming decades later, clawing at phantom waves or seeing the dead walk through smoke. Some turned to Sayre, Norse magic, for relief, paying a Velva to sing them into trance and cut loose the dream's hooks. Others slept upright, believing recline invited spirits onto the chest, the infamous mare of nightmare. Most just endured. Let's zoom out. Historian's lens again. Why catalog Viking nightmares? Because fear is a universal rune. Strip away horned helm Hollywood nonsense, and you find human beings who bled, trembled, and begged the dark for mercy, just like us. Understanding their midnight terrors bridges 12 centuries in a single exhale. When you dream of missing a deadline or losing your phone, add perspective. At least you're not expecting Rand to drag you through saltwater hell. The ash smell of last night's campfire still ghosts the air when the drums of dawn start up. Slow, deliberate, like someone hammering frost off an iron anvil. You sit bolt upright on your bed of tangled cloaks, half convinced the pounding is still your heartbeat slamming against your ribs. Outside, the winter sun crawls sideways along the horizon, shoving a bloody stripe across the sky, but never quite climbing. Perfect half-light, the hour when dreams and daylight mingle without manners. No shouting yet, no clatter of shield on shield, only that patient drum thud. Boom, 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 rolling through the settlement. It isn't war music. Today it's a summons. Sailcloth must be hauled down to the shoreline, supplies counted, edges honed one last time. One more voyage south, the chieftain promised last night. One more bellyful of foreign silver, then back in time to see the birch buds peel open. Everyone believes him because belief is easier than negotiation. But first, breakfast. A girl no older than 13 pads through the hall, pouring ale so weak you can see daylight through it. She offers a trencher of barley porridge clotted with goat fat. The steam rises like an omen. You force it down, trying not to taste the sourness that fear pumps into everything. Across the table, Hereford, broad as an ox yoke, stares at his bowl with the look of a man reading runes. He had the Dead Watch dream again, he tells you under his breath. In it, he stands on the prow, but the sea is dry, and the deck is sand. A procession of headless warriors marches past, each carrying its own skull cradled like a newborn. When the last one goes by, Hereford wakes choking on dust. You nod, not because you know what it means, but because silence would feel like disbelief. Everybody's dreams are everybody's problem here. If one man enters the void unprepared, the seam of the shield wall loosens for all. So you answer the drum. Boots on, cloak pinned, axe strapped. Outside, the world is a gray-blue bruise. Frost feathers still cling to the thatch, but a salty wind off the fjord already licks them away. Down by the water, shipwrights hunch around the longship's hull, tapping dowels into plank seams, sealing gaps with lamb tallow boiled down to a rank paste. Keep the sea outside the wood, an old carpenter mutters, and the trolls outside the head. You wonder if the second half is more instruction than proverb. While the warriors file toward the beach, the Godi steps into their path. He's draped in reindeer skins stitched with tiny bronze bells that tinkle like distant sleet. In one hand, he carries a wooden bowl, in the other, a bundle of twigs scorched at the tips. He begins daubing each rower's forehead with a smear of pig blood thinned in cold water. Ostensibly, it's to bind the crew under Freyr's watch. Unspoken, it's also to mark the dreamers. You belong to this living cohort, no drifting off with the dead during the voyage. When it's your turn, the bristles scratch your skin, and the metallic scent drags last night's Rand vision out of hiding. For a split second, you're back under that inverted boat, lungs lifting seawater like molten lead. You sway. The Godi's eyes, pale as dawn ice, lock onto yours. He whispers only for you. Net of the sea, net of the mind, both hold only if you struggle. Your throat tightens, he moves on. Next ritual, the sunstone test. The navigator hefts a cloudy crystal, some call it Iceland spar, others sunstone, and tilts it toward the dim sky. By watching how the light polarizes, he finds the hidden sun and sets the painted dial fixed to the mast. Superstition says if the stone shows two suns, a shapeshifter hides among the crew. Everyone leans in, hearts banging. One sun gleams. Breath releases. But in the hush that follows, someone mutters, "Yet trolls cast no shadow." Laughter, thin, cracks like ice, but nobody pushes the joke farther. Rowers take benches, oars slide out and dip once, twice, until the hull groans forward. The shore peels away. Villagers shrink to ink dots. Bells from the stave church by the cliff ring farewell, or maybe warning. Beneath your boots the deck vibrates with more than wood. 30 hearts thudding in reluctant choir. Mid-morning haze cloaks the sea, and the world narrows to damp planks, breath clouds, and the low chant of the steersman. To stay awake, you pick at the wax-sealed pouch hanging from your neck. Inside is a twist of henbane and angelica root, herbs of vulva prescribed after your first battle. Chew them before sleep, she said, and your spirit will pass through Hell's Gate unnoticed. But supplies run low, and sharing is risky. Overdose, and you'll wander screaming like the mad berserks they chain during Yule so they don't burn the hall by accident. Yesterday, you divided the last of the angelica into 3 splinters. Tonight must be rationed carefully. A gull lands on the mast crosspiece, staring with bead eyes. Superstition flares again. If it calls only once, a storm by dusk. Twice, safe crossing. Thrice, a death on board. You count. 1, 2. Breath holds. Then the bird lifts off wordless, denying fate any prediction. The men exhale as though they've been punched. Hours pass. Oars rest. Sail tightens. You settle into that watchful half-trance sailors know, awake but drifting, the boundary where nightmares can creep across even under daylight. Memories of raids flicker, monks kneeling in surf, treasure chest hinges screaming, the smell of wet sheep and burning thatch. And mingled with them, imagined futures. What if the next shore hides iron-clad Franks? What if the ship splits? What if your child, due this spring, never sees your face free of scars? These aren't wild visions. They're plausible horrors. By afternoon, the wind shifts north and darkens. Clouds heap like mountains. The helmsman shouts trim orders. You grab a rope, hauling canvas as sleet begins slashing sideways. One shard hits your cheek and sticks, stinging like a nail. In that instant, the sea rears memory and myth into one shape. You hear the growl you once ascribed to Jormungand, the world serpent, and you taste salt, iron like blood. The storm breaks with no courtesy. Hail hammers shields, men cling to benches. The sail snaps so hard, the mast shudders. You think of Hervor's headless warriors. Maybe they were never on-shore spirits, but omens of a death at sea. Lightning claws the clouds. Someone bellows that Thor is sharpening Mjolnir on the sky's whetstone, and if one of you is false, the strike will find him. Another slashes a rope free, offering it to you and 2 others. Lash yourselves to the gunwale. You do so with shaking fingers, muttering every protection charm you can half remember. Time folds. You only know you survive because suddenly hail softens to drizzle and the clouds labor east, leaving weak blue. The ship lists but holds together. One rower is missing, snatched by a wave, ropes slick from his grasp. No one speaks his name yet, naming seals fate. The steersman orders bailing, while the navigator checks the sunstone. You glimpse it, again, one sun. Relief feels traitorous when water still sloshes knee-deep in the bilge, but you clutch it anyway. Evening slides in like a sigh. Wet cloaks steam under the meek fire someone coaxes in a shield-lid kettle. The missing man's bench lies empty. No seat may go unmanned tomorrow, so a thrall is dragged from the cargo hold. A skinny youth taken last raid, promised freedom if he rose stoutly. He stares at the empty space like a rabbit blinks at wolf prints, then sits. That night, your nightmares borrow his eyes. Darkness, and again the half-boat dream. But now the sea goddess Rand isn't alone. She rows backward, oars churning ink, and beside her the drowned crewman drips absence like tar. He extends the soaked rope that failed him, lays it across your lap. When you look up, his head is gone, Hervor's vision fulfilled. You wake with the rope imprint still tingling on your thighs, though there's no rope there. Dawn coughs pink. Another body is missing, the thrall. No splash heard, no cry in the night. Some whisper Selkie theft. Others accuse the sea monsters painted on the sail of coming alive. But the old carpenter finally mutters a verdict. Guilt weighs more than chains. Maybe the boy dove rather than face a life rowing under men who killed his family. Silence stiffens. Here is the crux. Terror spreads like rot unless cleaned. So the chieftain orders a shore halt at a rocky isle crowned by twisted pines. Ritual beach. You wade through froth, carrying the rune-carved post reserved for such moments. It's driven into shingle by mallet blows that echo off cliffs. Each warrior drops a token, a bead, a coin, a lock of hair, into the tide at the post's base, payment so the drowned do not drag the living in dreams. When your turn comes, you hesitate. You own little. Finally, you pull the henbane pouch from your neck. It lands in surf with a plop, vanishing. The vulva's protection is gone. A chill threads your spine, but oddly, the air feels lighter. Maybe unburdening works, or maybe you just fed Ran the price she sought. Back on board, men, breathe easier. Storm clouds have dissolved into scattered wisps. A double rainbow bends over the fjord's mouth like a promise written in color. Yet, beneath the optimism, fatigue worms deeper. Sleep tonight will be raw, unbuffered by herbs or charms. As the ship noses south, you catch Hervor's eye. He lifts his chin toward the benches, meaning, when the moon climbs, we talk. He's crafting a new warding song, he says, one woven from the rhythm of oars to lull bad dreams the way a mother hums babes to rest. You nod. Music as armor. Stranger things have saved men. Night drops again. Stars drill holes in the canvas of the sky. Crew curl under damp furs, hips bruised from a day of rowing. Hervor starts the tune low, a hum that vibrates the ribs. You join, then another. Soon the whole hull hums like a distant beehive. The melody folds the splash of water and creak of timber into itself until everything, fear, memory, prophecy, beats in one pulse. For the first time in nights, sleep slips over you smooth as whale oil. What comes isn't Ran or headless specters, but your child, not yet born, laughing on a green hillside you've never seen. She lifts a wooden sword and charges a phantom foe. You kneel, show her how to level the blade. The sun is warm, no sea in sight. You wake with tears drying across your temples. Hervor is already up, tightening his belt. He sees your face and smiles like a man who glimpsed the same field. Maybe he did. Ahead lies the target coast. Smoke threads the horizon, hearths of villagers starting their own dawns, unaware. Your pulse kicks war drum pace, but the nightmare edge is dulled. There's a hush in your chest, a promise that rage and tenderness can share the same skull. You grip your axe, you step toward the prow, and somewhere behind your ribs, the dream field waits, green as hope. Moonlight drapes the ship like silver chainmail, and the salt-crusted planks creak as if murmuring secrets too old for any saga. You're awake before the gulls are, perched near the prow where night spray frets the wood. The dream field of yesterday still lingers behind your eyes, but now a new weight presses against your sternum, the awareness that peace in a warrior's sleep is a loan, never a gift, and the interest always comes due at dawn. You're not alone. Hervor stands beside you, rolling his shoulders, letting the cold air scald the last tatters of slumber from his lungs. He hums the warding tune again, only a whisper of last night's chorus, but that single thread of melody seems enough to keep the dark water tame. For a moment, the two of you simply breathe, watching your own breath drift seaward in milky plumes. Then Hervor speaks without turning. The gods listen hardest when men are quiet. He says it like a warning. Behind you, the first rustlings of life shake the longship awake. A pair of thralls emerge from the hold with flint and steel. Sparks hop across a shield-lid fire bowl, catching in sea drift kindling. The tiny flame glows fox-red in the blue pre-dawn, and every face in range tilts toward it like iron filings seeking a magnet. One by one, warriors shuffle closer, bowls extended for their share of oatcakes warmed on the iron griddle. Breakfast is meager, just grain, dried apples, and a ration of smoked herring shredded into the mash. But after yesterday's storm, even thin fare feels like feasting. The chieftain appears, hair braided with bronze beads that clink against his temple every time he moves. He plants his spear butt on the deck, addresses the crew. The target settlement, he announces, is a river town 2 fjords south. No fortifications, but a garrison of Frankish levies rumored to have iron helmets and the sort of long-handled axes that split a skull like firewood.
"We land, we strike, we leave," he says. Then, almost casually, "And we take none who wish to stay dead." The phrasing, cryptic in another tongue, is clear enough in his. Any man who falters and falls gets no rescue. The sea has already claimed its toll. The land will claim more. You feel the plank beneath your boots tilt, not from wave, but from the vertigo of what awaits. With daylight comes ceremony. The Ghoti heaves a small sealskin bag from his pack. Out pour 6 knuckle bones, sheep talus polished black from years of handling, and a single carved walrus ivory die. He kneels in the narrow aisle between benches, rolls them onto a swatch of linen dyed blood red. Everyone leans in. Each bone bears carved runes on one side: wealth, battle, sickness, journey, storm, death. The ivory die shows only blank faces, except one, etched with a spiral. Legend says that side stands for Loki's eye, chaotic favor, neither good nor bad, only unexpected. The throw clatters, bones settle. The Ghoti's breath hangs suspended like frost. 2 bones show journey, 1 wealth, 1 storm, 1 battle, and, heart thud, 1 death. The die lands Loki's side up. Interpretation belongs to the Ghoti, but every man makes his own silent guess. 2 journeys hint at a safe return, or perhaps 2 voyages, there and back, if the storm bone doesn't drown the ship first. Wealth lies within reach, but death lurks on shore. As for Loki's spiral, no telling. You swallow. At least no bones read sickness. Fever is a worse foe than steel, and winter fever is a mute executioner. Still, images slip in. Fevered men raving at shadows, their nightmares oozing into daylight until they claw at empty air, convinced Valkyries drag them off by invisible braids. You tamp the thought down. By mid-morning, the coast rises ahead. Low dunes tufted with marram grass, a meandering river mouth, and beyond it, thatched rooftops like overturned baskets on the plain. Smoke from hearth fires scribbles lazy columns skyward. Crows slalom between them, ever the opportunists. Hervor spits over the gunwale. First blood to the birds. The crew murmurs assent. The plan is simple. The ship will run aground at the sandspit. Warriors will take up the river path under cover of willow thickets, strike at mid-morning when market stalls are busiest, then retreat to the longship before a proper defense forms. But simple plans are fragile toys. You've seen them snap under the heel of one unseen sentry, one panicked child. That's why the Ghoti insists on another precaution: dream binding. He gathers the warriors in a half circle. From an ashwood casket, he lifts thin discs of birch bark, each etched with a different galder, chants written as runic spirals. He hands them out, instructs each man to tuck his disc beneath his tongue until the first blade is drawn. The bitter bark will numb the taste buds, he warns, but it's not flavor he seeks to dull, it's fear. According to lore, the numbing travels downward, quieting the stomach where dread nests, coiling through the gut like a midnight eel. You accept your disc and slide it under your tongue. The taste is woody, sappy, and quickly gone. In its place, a weird distance creeps into your chest. as if feelings are stones on a beach you're now viewing from a cliff. Landing. The hull scrapes sand with a hollow screech. Warriors splash into knee-deep surf, shields raised to spare them a dousing. The beach smells of rotting seaweed and damp sorrow. Odd how every shore feels as if it's already lamenting loss. You jog across the dunes, boots sinking into soft grit, then plunge into willow undergrowth. Branches claw at cloaks, twigs snap like tiny bones. A sparrow erupts from cover, heart-startling everyone. 30 men freeze, hearts thud. But no horn answers, no sentry shouts. The river lies ahead, glinting like a slackened chain.
Crossing is swift and silent. Stepping stones slick with algae. One man slips, curses under his breath, rescues his axe before himself. On the far bank, plowed fields spread like brown corduroy. Cabbages sit huddled in rows, frost nibbling their edges. A farmer drives an ox cart along a track, oblivious. The chieftain signals halt and studies the horizon. At last he waves, and the column advances.
Then it begins. Not the raid, but the preludial quiet. A hush so invasive it rings in your ears louder than battle cries. The village gate, little more than split logs lashed with hemp rope, stands ajar. Past it you glimpse stalls of flaxcloth, barrels of river fish, and a stone church struggling to look important, its small bell tower capped with a crooked cross. Figures move lazily among the stalls, backs turned to the tree line. You breathe once, twice. The birch disc under your tongue feels heavy, like a pebble drop in water.
The chieftain's fist lifts, opens, attack. 30 shadows fan out. At the first clang of axe on shield rim, market chatter flips to screeching chaos. A Frankish levy, a boy, really, reaches for his spear, but Hervor's axe splits the haft before it's leveled. Somewhere to your left, a horn finally blares, raw and desperate. Too late. You crash into a fishmonger, shove him aside, vault a barrel, find yourself face to face with a gray-bearded soldier. He bears a long sword, trembling like a wind catcher. You parry, slip, swing. Blade meets shield edge, sparks spit. He lunges. The moment hangs, until an arrow from behind your line punctures his thigh. He crumples, eyes huge, mouth soundless. Your axe finds his shoulder before mercy can compromise you.
And it is always like this. Seconds that stretch to eons, then snap back so fast you gasp. The raid unravels in bursts, shouts, crash, smoke from upturned braziers, the whump of thatch catching fire. Over it all, a shrill note, women wailing, men pleading, metal singing. You wade through it half numb, half alive. At some point, you see the chieftain seize a reliquary from the church altar, silver chased with garnets, and bolt for the gates. Signal to withdraw. Loot sags in sacks across shoulders. Blood spatters cloaks. The ground, once neat straw and mud, is a churned porridge of both.
Retreat. You sprint back across the fields. Arrows hiss overhead. One finds the calf of the man behind you. He stumbles, curses, keeps going. At the river, water splashes red. A Frankish levy rises from reeds, swinging a broken spear like a club. You shove him under, hold until bubbles cease, then feel sick but keep moving. By the time the ship looms ahead, sails up, you're panting ragged curses in time with your boots.
Ashore again, warriors board, vaulting benches. The helmsman cranks the rudder, oars dig deep. The longship slides backwards from the sand, turning. Only when the river mouth widens behind you do nerves unwind. Then recoil as tallying begins. 1 man dead, 4 wounded, including Hervor. A gash from neck to clavicle, shallow but ugly. Blood mats beard to chest. He sits, presses moss to it, grins crooked at you. Dream's not finished, it seems. You force a smile.
Spoils are piled mid-deck. Coins, reliquaries, bolts of dyed cloth. 1 iron cauldron still warm from stew. The Godi sorts these riches, separating share from offering. A gold chalice, dented, but its value lies not in metal, but in appeasement. At sundown, he'll hurl it into the sea for Aegir, ensuring safe passage. No one protests. Superstition outranks greed today. Afternoon sees the wind dwindle. Rowers take up oars. The wounded groan at each lurch. You trade places with a friend so Hervor can rest. Blisters split on your palms, leaking bright threads. Stroke after stroke, a mantra forms. I am alive, therefore I row. And beneath it a murmur. The dead man under water. What was his name? Did he dream last night too? You shake the thought like a wet cloak, but it clings. Toward dusk, the Godi motions you and Hervor to the stern. He has questions. Did anyone feel the bark talisman fail? Did nightmares intrude mid-battle? Most shake heads. Hervor pauses, admits something. When he swung at a Frankish knight, he saw, for an instant, his own father's face beneath the steel cap. It faltered his strike. The knight escaped harm, though Hervor did not. The Godi nods gravely. Battle visions of kin are ill omens, ghosts tugging at bloodline. He prescribes a remedy. During third watch tonight, Hervor must carve his father's name into driftwood, then throw it overboard at first light. Until then, he must keep silent, lest the name anchor in anyone else's dream. Night descends, star-splattered, unnervingly serene. Oars shipped, sails slack, the ship drifts under a sky so clear it seems washed. Someone produces a goatskin bag of mead, pilfered from the village. Cups pass, throats burn warm, tongues loosen. The chieftain even laughs, an odd barked sound like an axe biting rotten wood. But laughter on a longship is fickle. It often flips into argument, then song, then sobbing. Tonight it turns to song. A low drone begins, Hervor's tune again, taken up by deeper voices, layered with harmony from a young rower whose falsetto flutters like gull wings. Lyrics weave between Icelandic and Old Norse, half understandable, half spell. Sva skin sol, let the sun shine down the path, bind the dark to stone. The melody vibrates mast to keel. Even the wounded whisper the refrain. You sense the sea stilling as though listening. During second watch, your eyelids sag. You curl near the mast, cloak pulled overhead. Sleep arrives. And with it, uninvited, the drowned man again. But this time he offers not a rope, but a fish.
silver gasping. You hesitate, take it. In your palm it turns to iron, then to mist. He nods, vanishes. You wake, heart hammering, unsure if the omen means release or burden. Dawn awaits interpretation. Gray light bleeds behind black clouds. A gull shrieks. Hervor kneels at the rail, carving letters into driftwood with his sakes. The shavings curl like tiny question marks blown away on the wind. When he's done, he presses the wood to his lips, then sets it adrift. You both watch it bob, then disappear under the hull. A long exhale passes your lips you didn't know you'd held. The chieftain emerges, orders breakfast, counts wounded, plots course. The journey home will skirt dangerous shoals, but the alternative is sailing near a coastline held by Irish kings who hate Norsemen more than storm hates sun. Risk is a menu. He chooses the dish he's eaten before. Rowers brace, oars bite. Rain starts, fine but needling. You settle into motion, letting rhythm erase thought. Yet one thought persists. Nightmares may dog warriors, but sometimes they also guide them. The drowned man's fish turned iron turned mist. What wisdom hides there? You tuck the question away. The sea will answer when ready, or not at all. Mid-morning brings a shout from the lookout at the prow. Fin slicing the water off port side. Porpoises, sleek and playful. Some cultures deem them omens of safe passage. Others, souls of drowned sailors escorting ships. The crew cheers as the creatures leap, vanish, reappear. Even the chieftain grins. Spirits lift. You feel the knot in your chest loosen, enough to breathe deeper than all week. But omens cut both ways. Moments later, a spout erupts starboard. A whale, vast as the longship itself, rolling just beneath the surface. Its bulk brushes the keel, making the timbers quiver like a plucked bowstring. Men clutch benches. The whale's eye surfaces, moon pale, stares a heartbeat before sinking. Silence swallows the deck. The navigator mutters, "That one carries the memory of drowned men on its back." Every rower glances at the water, half expecting hands to reach up. The Godi seizes the silver chalice, still waiting for Aegir. Without ceremony, he hurls it where the whale vanished. It arcs, flashes, splashes. The whale does not return. Oars dip again, this time slower, like apology. Afternoon drags. Rain ceases. Wind turns. The ship rounds a headland where cliffs beetle over green swells. Far up the slope, a waterfall unravels like white wool. There, the Godi insists, lies a cave where echoes steal dreams. If the crew sleeps in its shadow, nightmares drain out like pus from an abscess. The chieftain hesitates, detour costs time, but the wounded need rest, and spirits sag after the whale. Decision made. Anchored beneath the cliff, the crew rows ashore in the smaller skiff. The shoreline is all boulders, slick with lichen, tide pools flickering with shrimp. Inside the cave, it's warmer than outside. Steam, perhaps from hidden springs.
and the air smells metallic, as though the rock itself were bleeding iron. Torches hiss to life, painting walls in amber gloom. Strange patterns ripple across the stone, threads of quartz that catch torchlight and reflect it into dancing runes no man can read.
The Godi leads a chant timed to the cave's drip rhythm. Each syllable lands like stone in water, concentric ripples filling the hollow. Udar kveði, dromsvart, fjara hjarta. You don't know the words, but you know the meaning. Release what poisons the skull. Keep what steadies the hand. One by one, warriors lie back on furs spread across sand, letting the chant seep into muscle and marrow. You sit, arms wrapped around knees, gaze on the quartz veins gleaming like frozen lightning. Sleep finds you quickly, and for the first time, the drowned man does not appear. Instead, you stand on a shoreline blazing with aurora. Each ribbon of light forms a rune, sliding across the night like paint on black water. They spell nothing you recognize, yet you grasp the gist. The sea is both womb and grave, and fear is the salt that preserves men between the two. You reach out. The lights smear under your fingertips, coating them in luminescence. You mark that light across your brow like war paint. Wake. Torches gutter. Dawn streaks through the cave mouth. Men stir, stretch. No screams, no ragged breathing. The chant did its work. Even Hervor's wound looks less angry. The Godi collects a strand of quartz flakes, pockets them. Dream salt, he says. You believe him. Back aboard, the crew sets course again. The wind favors you, the sail bellies proud. Spirits, buoyed by rest, tilt toward banter. Someone starts a riddle game. Answers get you a swig of mead. Failures earn you bilge-scrubbing duty. You win twice, lose once. Laughter feels like a torch against the chill. And for a brief span, war, death, storms all shrink to the size of seagulls on the horizon. But horizon changes. In the late afternoon haze, a shape emerges starboard. Another longship, sails reefed, listing. You squint. No oars, no crew visible. Drifting. The chieftain orders approach. As you near, the stench hits first. Rot, pitch, despair. The hull bears axe notches, a sign of desperate scuttling. A few bodies lie tangled in rigging, faces gnawed by gulls. One clutches a runestone pendant, identical to yours. Norse, brothers, maybe even kin of your village. Boarding is silent. You step onto the haunted deck, heart thudding. No survivors. Blood crust dark on planks. A broken cauldron, hacked shields, empty water casks. The story is written in fragments. Attacked, fled, storm-struck, plague? In the hold you find the answer. A corpse sits propped against the mast, hands cramped to his head, eyes wide as moons. Skin blackened with blotches. Plague, then. Likely they died at sea, nightmares feeding on fever until the last man succumbed. You swallow bile. The Godi orders no loot be taken. Plague might ride even silver. Instead, you cut loose the sail, lash the rudder, push the ghost ship on a course out to deep sea, where fire arrows set it alight. Flames climb the mast like a funeral banner, painting clouds orange. The chieftain whispers, "Better burned than dreamed by children who find it washed ashore."
Evening again. Your crew is quiet, pensive. The realization is stark. Nightmares can kill in ways no blade hopes to. Fevered dreams of plague paint horrors no saga should touch. Hervor grips your arm. "Sing," he mutters. So you pick up his tune, softer, slower, weaving new verses about the aurora runes and the cave's dream salt. Others join, grateful. The melody floats across dark water, toward embers of the burning ship, as if to cradle its ghosts.
Midnight. Stars glare coldly. You rest your back to the mast. Feel the ship's pulse under you, the sea's larger pulse beyond. In your hands, a small quartz shard gifted by the gaudy. It glows faintly, catching starlight. You press it to your chest. The thumps of your heart reflect inside the stone like an echo chamber. You think, perhaps nightmares aren't warnings of doom, but invitations, maps to rooms inside the soul we'd never enter awake. Tomorrow, landfall approaches, and with it, new terrors. But tonight, the quartz shard hums, the song swells, and against all sense, you believe you will see spring. Sea fog thick as fleece folds itself around the hull before dawn, smothering every sound but the yawning groan of timber. You only know you're moving because the mast shivers with the hush-hush of canvas breathing in damp wind. On deck, shapes are reduced to smudges, rowers hunched like gargoyles, the prow dragon's head looming as a ghost. Somewhere astern, the helmsman mutters to the rudder as if it were a skittish horse. "Steady now, easy, feel the current more than the eye." Vision fails, instinct takes the tiller. The fog does something to the mind. It blurs the boundary between waking and the half-lit hinterland where nightmares roam. Soon, men begin to whisper that they smell smoke, though nothing burns, or that they hear bells, though no church stands within 100 miles of open sea. The Godi says the mist is the exhalation of Aegir's wife, Ran, she who nets drowned souls and picks their pockets for treasure. Her breath steals bearings, coaxes crews into her woven graves. The remedy, he claims, is rhythm. Keep the oars beating the heart of the ship so loudly that no whisper from the deep can seduce an ear. So you row. You, Hervor, the wounded, the unhurt, it makes no difference. Every man who can hold an oar does, and every pull feels like you're drawing the world's curtains open, only to find a fresh wall of gray. Time dilutes. Minutes, hours, they drip together like candle grease. You wonder if perhaps you died on that burning ghost ship, and this is limbo. An endless row with no shore, no sun, just spectral water and the hush of unseen wings overhead. Mid-morning, or what you guess is mid-morning, the prow smacks something solid. Not rocks, but flesh and hide. A thump shivers through the keel. Rowers freeze. The fog seems to listen.
Then a low bellow rolls up the planks, followed by a wet slap against the hull. Everyone peels themselves off benches, craning for a glimpse. The mist parts just long enough to reveal the culprit. A bull seal, vast, nostrils flaring, eyes glossy black as pitch. It studies the longship, then dives, tail flicking like a disdainful banner. The chieftain exhales. "Stallion of the surf," he murmurs, naming the beast's poetic kenning. "Good luck," some say. "Unless it's bad," others counter. On this voyage, omens are double-edged coins. You never know which face they'll show when tossed. By noon, light finally seeps through, bleaching the fog until it thins into shredded gauze. Out past the prow lies a necklace of skerries, low, sea-sprayed rock rigs sprouting shaggy pines. Beyond them, mainland cliffs rise like a slammed book's page edges, sheer, mottled with guano, veined by waterfalls. Somewhere up there sits Jarnholt, the iron-sided fort where Jarl Sigtrygg gathers fighters for spring raiding. It's not your home port, but the chieftain owes Sigtrygg a favor and intends to pay with loot and manpower. Word has it the Jarl shelters a coven of berserkers in winter months, feeding them raw seal meat and mushroom broth until their veins remember what it is to boil. Visiting that hall, you realize, means crossing another dream border, the place where fear stops being something to ward off and becomes a weapon you willingly sheath in your own flesh. Landing is easier this time. The sea, perhaps appeased by the silver chalice, lets you beach on a crescent of black sand without complaint. Everyone moves with a hushed efficiency born of exhaustion. No triumphant shouting, no songs of arrival, only the rasp of runners dragging the ship above tide line and the soft clack of weapons checked for rust. The chieftain sends 2 scouts uphill. The rest shoulder bundles and begin the slog toward the palisade above. Jarnholt is less a fort than a scar in the rock. Its timber walls scale the hillside at a cant, anchored by great iron spikes hammered into the cliff itself, hence the name. Inside, tiers of platforms are stacked one above another like giant shelves, each crowded with huts, forge fires, and broad drying racks strung with fish and wet wolf pelts. Smoke climbs in slants, dispersing into pine tops. At the summit stands a mead hall roofed in overlapping iron plates, matte black, cursed to flash blood red under sunset. From its chimney coils a single dark plume that smells of pine tar and burnt marrow. Gate guards eye your band with suspicion that melts into amusement once they spot the sacks of plunder and the gleam of church silver. Tribute buys entry. The chieftain presents the village reliquary, a silver arm once cradling a saint's bones, now empty, yet still holy enough to impress even pagans fixated on shiny metal. The guards grunt approval, unlatch the gate. Inside, you're hit with a wall of sound. Hammers ringing anvils, dogs barking, the roar of a forge bellows, intertwined with laughter so harsh it could carve runes into oak. But an undernote hums, the unsettled murmur of many sleepers disturbed at once, as though nightmares drift here in broad daylight. You realize people are singing under their breath everywhere.
Smiths at their iron songs, women at looms humming cradle tunes for no babies, even a dog whining in a decidedly musical cadence. It's the fortress's answer to fear. Drown it in noise before it drowns you. The jarl greets your chieftain in the high hall. You tag along, boots slurping in slush, eyes wide. Sigtrig is younger than rumor painted, beardless except for a braid descending from his chin like a lone root. Yet authority radiates off him like forge heat. Men around him unconsciously align their shoulders square. Formalities occur, oath ribbons exchanged, tribute displayed, the ghost ship lament relayed. Sigtrig listens, jaw flexing at the plague detail. He decrees a cleansing ritual. Tonight all newcomers must pass beneath the Arch of Songs.
You learn soon enough what that means. At dusk, torches line a natural archway carved by frost-splintered stone on a ledge behind the hall. Singing thralls, dozens, stand in 2 rows, facing each other, throats opened in a droning harmony that vibrates your ribcage before you even step inside. Each note is a thread. Together they weave a net of sound meant to ensnare bad spirits hitching rides in men's shadows. You file through, heartbeat syncing with the chant's thrum. The sensation is strange, as though footsteps are not your own, but belong to some larger animal carrying all of you at once. Hervor, limping but alive, squeezes your shoulder during the passage. When you emerge, his eyes are clearer, yet red-rimmed. The same tear-worn look newborns have when they first see sky. Ceremony over, the feast begins, and it is excess incarnate. Tables sag beneath roast boar, cod stewed in cream, wheels of goat cheese, baskets of cloudberries preserved in honey. But meat and mead are not the stars, stories are. Warriors mount benches to recount visions that plagued them before battle. Serpents coiled in guts, ravens that spoke in forgotten dialects, mothers' voices crying from severed heads. Each nightmare is offered up like a sacrificial lamb, carved in public so its terror bleeds out where laughter can lap it away. When your turn comes, you speak of the drowned man and the Aurora runes. The hall hushes, not mocking, but leaning toward wonder. Even the berserkers at the far hearth, bare-chested despite the chill, torsos tattooed with red knotwork, pause their bone-cracking to listen. One of them, a woman with hair shaved on one side and eyes reflecting firelight like wet stones, approaches afterward. She offers no name, only a question. Did the Aurora show a split rune at the end? You think back. Yes, maybe. She nods, satisfied. That's the rune for the door hinge, she says. Means what you saw wasn't an end, but a door swinging. Then she returns to her bone pile, conversation concluded. Later, you and Hervor claim a loft where straw mattresses circle a central brazier. Sleep comes quick, but peacefulness is a fragile glass. Somewhere near midnight, a howl knifes through the stillness, jerking you upright. The sound is human, but barely.
It echoes down from the demon's loft, where berserkers keep their own quarters. Another howl joins, then another, a discordant pack. The floorboards tremble with heavy footfalls. You remember tales. To maintain the berserk fury, they let waking nightmares in, feed them hallucinogenic mushrooms and isolation until the line between dream and day disintegrates. Tonight, perhaps, the line shredded too thin. You and several others rush into the corridor. A door at the far end bursts open, revealing a berserker man glazed with sweat, pupils moons in the torchlight. He brandishes no weapon, only his bare hands, but knuckles split and bleeding from punching beams. Sigtrygg's guards step in time, shields raised. The berserker roars about wolves in the rafters, chewing the moon. It takes 4 men, a net, and 2 prayer chains to restrain him. They drag him toward the courtyard, where a pit of ash smolders. There, shackles wait, iron warmed by fire, so flesh doesn't freeze to it. They'll keep him there until the mushrooms purge, or the moon sets, whichever comes first. You taste bile, but say nothing. After all, tomorrow he might fight beside you, and you'll be grateful for his madness then. Dawn stains the iron roof ruby. You and other newcomers are summoned to the practice yard. Here, instructors run drills aimed not at swordplay, but at owning nightmares. They blindfold you, spin you until balance evaporates, then have you fight straw targets wearing painted masks. Wolves, drowned men, plague faces, even your own likeness sketched in charcoal. The challenge is to swing not at what you see, because you see nothing, but at what you feel slithering through memory. Miss, and you start again. Strike true, and the instructor rings a small bell. By midday, your arms are jelly, but the bell rings more often. The straw effigy of the drowned man lies decapitated at your feet. Afternoon brings another rite, the mirror of blood. A shallow bronze basin filled with sheep's blood mixed with still water to thin the surface. Each warrior kneels, gazes in until the reflection blurs and an image surfaces. What the Godi calls philia, the spirit form that follows every soul. Some see wolves, eagles, serpents. Yours appears as a seal, the same bull seal, scarred, dark-eyed. The Godi nods, unsurprised. He says seals belong to both sea and land, friends to the living and the drowned. They guide those who cross between. You're not sure if you feel comforted or accused. Evening again. The feast hall fills. Tonight's menu includes a dish the berserkers cherish, bear heart stew, simmered with onions and the infamous red-cap mushrooms in measured doses. The Godi warns outsiders to ladle sparingly. Hervor, feeling brave, tastes a spoonful. His pupils dilate like ink drops in water, but he remains lucid, if intensely attentive to torchlight flicker. You decline. Someone must remember the night clearly. Stories flow anew, but now the Jarl asks for songs too. Skalds pluck harp strings, strike lyres. The berserker woman, finally speaking her name, Skadi, chants a saga of a dream stalker, a mare spirit called a Mara that rides men's chests, suffocating them as they sleep.
She claims berserkers sometimes invite the Mara, wrestle it until it breaks, then wear its pieces inside their skulls as armor against fear. You wonder how one breaks a nightmare into pieces, and whether the fight leaves scars on the mind the way iron leaves them on flesh.
Later, when drink thickens tongues and half the hall drifts into mead-laden drowsing, Sigtrygr rises. He announces tomorrow night's moon is a blood moon, the last before winter officially releases its grip. Under such a sky, he says, men's dreams mingle more freely with God's whispers. He intends a vigil on the cliff, torches dead, silence held, so each warrior can greet whatever vision walks the night. Attendance is not optional. Glory loves the brave. Afterward, you step outside for air. Stars litter the sky. Waves hammer the scary bass far below, a constant, slow percussion. Hervor joins, cloak around shoulders. He admits the stew made him see something. His father again, but calmer, carving a wooden seal and smiling. Maybe the driftwood spell worked. You lean against the rail, watch moonlight silver the pines, and catch yourself humming the warding tune. Habit now. The blood moon arrives as promised. Huge, smoldering orange, rising over the sea like a forge dragged across the horizon. Torches along the cliff are snuffed. Only embers keep the cold honest. Warriors sit cross-legged, eyes closed or fixed on the horizon, each wrapped in his own breath plume. The silence is so taut it sings. Somewhere behind you, a fox yips. No one moves. In that hush, dreams seep out of skulls and hover like mist. You feel yours first, the Aurora rune door creaking open. On the other side stands the drowned man, but not drowned now. He is dry, eyes bright, holding the iron fish again. This time he flings it skyward. It arcs, turns into a seal mid-flight, splashes into invisible sea. You hear, faintly, a bell ring, the same bell from the blindfold drill. Then you hear another bell, real, on the cliff. Someone, maybe the goatee, rings it thrice. The vigil is over. As torches relight, faces emerge, each bearing its own verdict. Some look terrified, some serene, some shaken to core. Scotty's cheeks glisten. The berserker who raged last night stands quiet, eyes clear. The jar nods approval. Nightmares faced in silence lose half their fangs. Next day, final logistics. Dividing plunder, repairing shields, sharpening axes to razors. Yet the camp vibrates with something deeper than readiness, like a loom tightened just before the shuttle flies. Sigtrygr announces the main thrust of spring raiding will target a Carolingian abbey rumored to house gold leaf gospel books and wine casks big enough to float a horse. But that is weeks away. First, he says, there will be a smaller test, a fortified fishing hamlet down coast whose night watch has grown complacent. You and your crew volunteer, eager to prove fog and plague and dream caves haven't blunted your edge. Preparations swirl. Net makers fashion rope ladders for scaling palisades. Fletchers whip up arrows fletched with gull feathers, white,
hard to trace in moonlight. The Godi brews an infusion from yarrow, skullcap, and the tiniest shred of redcap, just enough to sharpen reflexes without tipping men into frenzy. He calls it Wolf's Cokes. Each warrior is to drink a mouthful an hour before combat. Hervor collects the skins, stows them in a crate.
That evening, the Godi takes you aside. He presses the quartz shard against your palm again. "Seal man," he says, referring to your filja. "Tonight, when you sleep, and you must, ask the seal what lies at the hinge of that door." You nod, though you don't know how to converse with spirit fauna. Still, you lay on straw, close eyes, invite the seal. It arrives, lounging on a shore of black sand. You sit beside it. "What lies at the hinge?" you ask. The seal rolls, revealing its belly. Upon it glitters a tiny spiral rune, the same Loki's eye that appeared in the bone casting. Then the seal speaks without moving lips. The hinge turns wicked or wise, depending on who pushes. You wake sweating, unsure if riddle or warning.
Dawn of departure. Long ships line the cove like wolves at a watering hole, prows baring teeth. Your chieftain's vessel feels smaller now among Sigtryggr's fleet. The berserkers board first, faces painted white with ash, eyes rimmed in soot so wide they look eyeless. They seat themselves midship where impact will be hottest. Skadi catches your glance, taps her temple in salute, as if telling you to keep that door hinge steady.
You swallow a dose of Wolf's Cokes. It bites like nettle going down, then blooms warmth through limbs. The world sharpens. Ripples on water crisp as knife scores. Gull cries spaced like beads on a string. Fear remains, but at arm's length, as though taste-numbed like that bark talisman. You feel ready, not invincible, but enough.
The fleet slips out under a sky pale as bone, sails reefed to catch the modest onshore wind. Those who row chant under breath, locking strokes to heartbeat. Somewhere aft, a berserker begins a low ululation that threads through every skull, weaving the crew into one organism, pulsing toward conflict.
In that humming cadence you glimpse again the drowned man on the in-between water. He's rowing too, in perfect sync, but his oars churn mist instead of brine. You lock eyes. He neither smiles nor frowns, only rows. You get it now. He's no omen of doom. He's you, or part of you, straddling that door's threshold, proving the hinge turns both directions each time you dip the blade. Ahead, the coastline unspools, dotted by the hamlet's watchtower, its fire beacon unlit. Easy pickings, perhaps, but you remember every omen is a coin with two faces. Nightmares taught caution, but never cowardice. The hinge waits. You square your shoulders, grip the oar, let the wolf's coax howl quietly through your veins, and when the chieftain's fist opens, you'll push. Not to close the door on fear, but to swing it wide enough that fear itself marches out ahead of you, clearing the path for what comes next. Darkness doesn't feel like absence tonight. It feels like velvet hung between you and the world, soft but smothering, ready to muffle every cry the moment it slips out of a throat. The longship glides forward under bare poles, oars feather quiet, prow cutting moon-sparked ripples that vanish as soon as they appear. You crouch amidships, knuckles white on the ash rail, heartbeat synced to the drip of condensation off the mast. Ahead, lamps wink along the fishing hamlet's pier. 3 yellow eyes in a skull otherwise sleeping. Easy, the chieftain said, a test. But you've learned never to trust the lullaby tone of that word.
You breathe through your mouth to keep fog from blooming before your face. Beside you, Scotty the berserker rolls her shoulders, joints popping like thawing river ice. Her ash paint is smeared now, a storm map across her cheekbones. Hervor kneels on your other side, wound from the Frankish raid puckered but healing, the edges oiled with bear fat and yarrow. He taps the haft of his axe 3 times on the deck, tack, tack, tack. Then tucks a sliver of quartz under his tongue, adopting your seal's caution. Around you, the crew readies rope ladders, furled shields, and bundles of linen dipped in whale oil, fire starters for the return sprint if things sour. The Gaudi moves among benches, handing out the Wolf's Coke's draft in cups carved from ram horn. The stuff tastes like pine car married to pepper, numbing the gums before sliding flame down the gullet. In seconds, your pulse feels drummed by kettles. The night's chill recedes, but focus sharpens to a spear point. Your mind starts sorting every smell, every creak, labeling them friend, foe, wind, gull, rat. Fear is still there, it always is, but now it's bridled to the prow, pulling you forward instead of dragging you under.
A hand signal passes. Oars in. Silence. The longship coasts, keel kissing the tide-rippled sand with a breathy hiss. Warriors spill over the gunwale, one by one, boots sinking ankle-deep in black silt. You follow, calf muscles tightening as you haul yourself through the shallows. The water is minus knife cold, but tonight you're furnace lit inside. It might as well be bath warm. Behind you, steersmen pivot the ship broadside for a quick shove off later. 20 paces inland, reeds give way to flat grass scrub and a weathered plank walkway leading to the pier. On either side, drying racks stand skeletal, draped with cod halves stiff as bark. The breeze carries the reek of brine, gut, and tar. Yet another smell your brain files away. The hamlet wall, so grand in rumors, is little more than a waist-high palisade, reinforced by fishing nets and sharpened stakes. Beyond it, cottages cluster like brooding hens around a stone church and its lonely bell tower. No guards yet. A good sign, or the worst. The chieftain raises 2 fingers. Divide. Your squad veers left, aiming to breach near the smokehouse where hides hang curing. The other squad skirts right toward the grain store and watchtower ladder. Scotty leads with a cat-silent lope, axe clenched underarm. She stops at the palisade, signals you and Hervor. Together you crouch, interlock fingers, boost her up. She swings one leg, then the other, melts over the top, landing on the far side without even rattling the stakes. Your turn next. You vault, catch the ridge with gloved fingers, swing down. Boot meets ground, no noise but heart percussion. Inside the hamlet, moonlight pools in puddles left by ebb tide, mirrors thin as ice shards. You move between them, shadow to shadow, until the smokehouse looms. Its door stands ajar, warm glow leaking through the crack. Voices inside, 2, maybe 3, gossiping about herring prices and the bishop's new decree against dancing on saints' days. Scotty gestures. You and Hervor flank the door, pulse in your ears like war drums. On her mark, she bursts through, shoulder first. The door splinters, a hearth fire gusts sparks.
Chaos is prelude. A fishmonger scrambles for a filleting knife. Hervor shoulders him down, pommel cracks skull. Another man, older, beard frosted with salt, raises a cleaver. But Scotty's fist hits his solar plexus. The cleaver clatters before her axe blade whispers across his temple. He slumps, breath still threading, alive for now. You light one whale oil rag and lob it into the smoke chamber. Flames ghost up the rafters, chewing resin-rich beams. Within seconds, the smokehouse exhales a pillar of sparks high enough for every villager to see. Screams erupt outside, not civilians, the other squad's targets. Shouting in a dialect thick with coastal lilt, steel on steel. Time folds. You sprint out to find the watchtower ablaze, so much for stealth. 3 defenders in boiled leather jerkins form a shaky line across the main lane, pitchforks jutting like porcupine quills. Scotty doesn't break stride. She charges, a howl ripping her throat raw. The men falter at the first beat of that sound. You slide in on the right, hook a pitchfork shaft with your axe, wrench it free, lash the butt into its wielder's mouth. Teeth spray. Behind you, iron on bone, Hervor's axe meeting clavicle. By the time your stolen pitchfork soils the dirt, the defenders are down, 1 dead, 2 wishing soon to be. And then the bell rings. A single clang from the church tower. Someone's woken the priest. The noise pierces like lightning split. Even berserkers flinch. You curse. That bell's no mere alarm. Every village for miles knows its timbre. Reinforcements could ride within the hour. The chieftain's horn blares. Recall! Loot or no, time to vanish. You retreat toward the pier, torching crates as distraction. Smoke claws the sky. 2 cottages collapse in reed flame roar. But something snags the corner of your sight. Hervor, limping worse, unable to keep pace. Blood seeps new through his tunic, his old wound reopened, or a fresh slice. He waves you on. You grab his elbow. I'm no drowned man yet, he growls, but his voice is gravel. Scotty appears, hefts him across her shoulders like a child's doll, strides on. You cover her back, axe weaving. At the beach, rowers shove the long ship afloat while warriors splash through surf. Arrows hiss from shore. One skips off your shield rim with a kiss that numbs your arm. You throw Hervor aboard, scramble after, drag Scotty by her belt. Oars dig. The ship bucks free. As distance grows, arrows dwindle, then vanish. Safe? Not quite. Hervor's wound is bad. A cross cut across his previous gash, edges frayed, bleeding in pulses. The goatee unrolls a leather pouch, selects a bronze needle and gut thread, heats both in a torch flame. Hold him, he orders. You kneel behind Hervor, lock arms under his. Scotty clamps his legs.
The goatee pours honey mead to rinse the wound, then begins sewing, each pull squelching like mud suction. Hervor bites a leather thong, yet still howls so raw it rasps your bones. No poppy, no henbane, no blessed numbness. Only the bite of bronze and the metronome of waves. When the last stitch ties off, Hervor's head lolls. You fear faint or worse. The goatee nods, pulse beats strong. He packs the wound with moss, wraps cloth. Keep him warm, he says. You cradle your friend, rocking with the ship's sway, humming that seal song under your breath. Night chokes smoke scent to the deck. Sparks from the village drift skyward like lost souls learning to fly. Hours later, sails raised, distance stretching, you sit propped against the mast while crew files their loot. A coffer of silver coins, 2 bronze fish hooks the size of fists, a cask of whale oil, and, oddest, a wooden idol of St. Bryce hollowed out to hide contraband amber. Not a fortune, but proof of success. Still, your gut curdles. The bell's echo rings in memory. That sound might fetch a Frankish patrol to the coastline, complicating passage north. Hervor sleeps fitful. Sometimes he shivers. You swaddle him in spare cloaks. Scotty keeps vigil, wiping his forehead with salt water. The goatee claims sea salt wards fever better than river. Around midwatch, she speaks soft so only you hear. He dreamed of his father again while the stitches went in. Said the old man stood on the pier shaking his head. You swallow. Not omen enough to mean death, perhaps, but something cracks in you anyway. Dawn is bruise purple. The sea picks up wind from the east, slaps the hull with short, choppy fists. Rowers secure oars, sail takes strain. You snatch snatches of rest, but images swirl. The bell, Hervor's blood, seal eyes glinting beneath waves. At some hazy cusp of sleep, you see the hinge rune glowing, swinging. It reveals a path of torches across a marsh. At the end, a cottage stands, smoke curls friendly. But when you reach the door, the torches douse and the cottage is empty, except for a single silver cup, dented like the reliquary you stole. You wake with salt in your mouth, not sea mist, but tears. By midday, cliffs loom starboard, jagged, streaked with quartz veins, not unlike the cave walls where dreams bled into stone. The helmsman points, a cut between cliffs, barely wide enough for a longship. Shelter, he says. The chieftain nods. In heavy seas, any eddy is mercy. You angle in. The fjord crackles cold. Water turns mirror still. Pine and spruce scale slopes, their tips frosted white. A waterfall free falls from a throat of ice, shattering into beads before hitting the cove. The ship glides to a berth near a pebble strand. Snowflakes drift, carried on errant eddies. You disembark, feet crunching frozen stones. The goatee orders camp. Fires under drip ledge, furs over wounded. Tonight, he declares, the spirits of this fjord demand song in exchange for refuge. Groans ripple, men are bone spent, but no one argues with spirits when cliffs lean so close they might eavesdrop. As dusk bruises to indigo, fires roar. Sausages sizzle, mead warms in iron pots.
The Godi plants a forked hazel wand upright in snow, hangs bits of silver wire, one for each warrior's greatest fear. You bend your wire into shape of a bell, hang it. Scotty twists hers into wolf jaws. Everyone contributes until the wand jingles like icy wind chimes.
The singing begins low. First, the standard rowing chorus, then ballads older than memory. The whale rode hymn, the sinking sun dirge, the bound wolf lullaby. You join, throat rough, but the pack voice lifts the burden. As verses roll, something changes. The wind calms, the snowfall hushes, and the fjord itself seems to resonate, deepening every note like a giant harp. On the final refrain, one silver wire snaps of its own accord, the wire shaped like a bell. It drops into snow, soundless. The Godi smiles faintly. Fear released, he says.
Later, you check on Hervor. His fever has withdrawn, breath quiet. You thank whatever tangle of gods listens. He opens one eye, rasps. Did we win? You chuckle yes. Feed him a chunk of smoked eel, which he accepts like a penitent. Good, he whispers. Need new nightmares. Old ones getting dull. You squeeze his hand, pretend not to feel tears thaw under lashes. Midnight watch. You volunteer, needing sky. The snow stopped. Stars thumbtack the firmament. You stroll the pebble beach, listening to hush slap of fjord water. Suddenly, the bull seal surfaces yards away. It watches, whiskers gleaming silver. In its mouth, something, a fish. No, a shard of driftwood. It nudges it toward shore, retreats. You wade knee-deep, retrieve the shard. On one face, natural grain suggests a rune, the hinge spiral. You shiver, but not from cold. You carry the wood to camp, show the Godi. He turns it over, nods. Door still swings, he mutters, tossing it into the central fire. Blue-green flames flare, roar, subside. Morning dawns crystal. The wounded can travel. Sails fill, oars stow. You exit the fjord, back into open sea. Spirits feel lighter, though clouds loom far off. Storm brewing. The helmsman says it will chase, but not catch if wind holds. The chieftain plots course for the islands where spring melt yields fresh water and seal rookeries. Seal, again, you note the pattern. Afternoon, sea glass green. You lounge against the prow, sharpening axe. Scotty joins, offers dried berries, asks if you saw anything during watch. You tell her of the seal gift. She laughs, a harsh bark softened by respect. Your filia works overtime, she says, like a mother hen with teeth. She taps your temple. Hold to that when shadows lengthen. You nod, pocket a berry, chew. Toward dusk, gulls appear, wheeling frantic. Fish boil the surface, something large hunts below. Suddenly, a dorsal fin breaches. Orca, black-white, enormous. More follow, surrounding the longship like escorts. Crew murmurs. In some tales, orcas bear drowned kings to the halls of Ran. In others, they guide favored warriors past shoals. The Godi pours ale overboard, salutes. The bulls breach, spout, vanish. Oarsmen exhale.
Camp that night is on a treeless isle, wind-scoured, riddled with puffin burrows. Fires spark among boulders, skins stretch as windbreak. The chieftain gathers everyone. He speaks of debts. The Frankish silver bought peace with Sigtryg. The Hamlet raid proved worth, but greater tests loom. In 2 days the fleet will strike the abbey, a fortress of stone and Latin prayers. Only those who master nightmare and daylight equally can stand before its walls. He looks at Hervor, bandaged but standing, leaning on axe shaft. Some wounds, the chieftain says, are oaths sealed in blood. Keep them fresh, keep them honest. The Godi announces one last rite before the great raid. Night swimming. Each warrior must dive under the moon, eyes open, face the cold black of unlit sea. If visions find you there, let them. If they drown you, so be it. Terror tastes strongest in lungs. Swallow it, and you own it. Refuse, and terror soon owns you. You join the line at cliff's edge. Moonlight paints the swells a tarnished mirror. One by one, warriors step off, vanish with muffled splash. Your turn. You inhale, clutch quartz shard, leap. Cold bites like a smith's hammer. Water closes over ears, silence. You open eyes, nothing but ink swirling. You kick downward, deeper, until pressure drums skull. There, shape. Not the drowned man this time, but the hinge rune glowing gold, turning slowly. As it turns, you hear faint bell chime. Then lungs scream. You kick surfaceward, breach with gasp that steams in moonlight. Coughing, you crawl onto Shingle Beach. Skadi helps haul Hervor out next. He shudders, but grins wild. The Godi watches each survivor, nodding count. One berserker never surfaces. His absence registered, but not mourned. His choice, his gate. Fires warm blood back into limbs. You feel a new stillness inside, as if that pressure at depth pressed wrinkles from the brain. The rune still glimmers behind eyelids. You think of doors, of choices, of fear not erased, but harnessed. Dawn, final before Abbey raid. Sails patched, blades honed, hearts hammered. The chieftain gives last orders. The Godi distributes redcap microdoses. Skadi sharpens nails to talon points. Hervor breaks fever, stands taller. You clutch railing, eyes on horizon where whirls of gulls mark human settlement. The abbey waits. Stone walls, butter-rich chalices, Latin songs, and defenders who speak of Christ's peace, yet sharpen swords just the same. You wonder what nightmares haunt monks. Flaming pits, pagan devils, raiders like you? Perhaps tonight both sides will face the same hinge, just from different rooms. The longship lunges forward, prow spitting foam. Your seal spirit swims somewhere ahead, unseen but felt. The rune between worlds spins, strikes sparks. You roll shoulders, set feet, and when the prow kisses foreign sand, you'll push that door again. Open, close, whichever the moment demands.
Wind howls across the deck like some half-tamed wolf determined to remind every soul aboard that there is no such thing as a gentle sea, only brief truces in an endless brawl of salt and moonlight. Frost needles the ropes, turning hemp into iron wire. Your gloveless fingers burn where they clutch the rail, but you keep them there anyway. Pain is proof you're not still dreaming beneath the waves. Behind you, the keel groans as if its own ribs are shifting in anticipation. No drums set the rowing pace tonight. Heartbeats do the work, and each thud seems a word the ship is mumbling. Closer, closer, closer. Ahead, the abbey rises out of the mist like a cliff carved by stubborn gods. Walls of gray stone, squat watchtower, bell-cote silhouetted against clouds bruised silver by the nearly full moon. Even from this distance, you can taste the place. Candle tallow, pine smoke, the faint iron tang of blood from butchered winter hogs. Odd to think holy men smell so much like any other village. But fear has its own scent, and soon that will lace every corridor, every cloister walk. The chieftain paces the mid-deck, cloak snapping, voice kept low but carrying. Final formation, remember the lanes, remember the signals. He pauses by you, eyes glinting fox amber. Storm fast, leave quiet, he says, tapping your breastbone. And if you find their wine cellar, pray last. A joke to steady nerves, but you notice he fingers the amulet at his neck twice. A tiny hammered silver hammer, ridge worn smooth by worry. Scotty sits cross-legged near the mast, closed lids flickering as if watching some silent play behind them. When they snap open, she sketches a rune you don't recognize on the deck with a wet finger. "To hush arrows," she whispers. You nod whether you believe or not. Any hush is welcome. Her vore is up and moving, wrapped to the chin in layers of wool and boiled leather, eyes a little sunken, but burning with the manic eagerness of a man newly reminded he can bleed and still stand. He tests the repaired axe edge on his thumbnail. A clean curl of keratin flakes away. Satisfied, he tucks quartz shard inside his cuff, token against nightmares, or perhaps the invitation. The Godi places a bowl of smoldering juniper on the bow platform. Smoke coils backward over the warriors. You inhale, and the sharp resin nips sinuses awake. He chants, no lofty poetic meter tonight, just a pulse-beat list of names. Fathers, uncles, lovers, foster brothers. The dead roll off his tongue like pebbles tipped out of a pouch, each clicking on the deckboards. The living echo each name once, then fall silent, so its memory can march with them. When the prow finally grates across gravel, the longship yawns forward, belly emptying its wolves. Boots splash, blades gleam. Snow from earlier squalls lies crusted on the beach, crunching underfoot louder than you'd like, but the sea behind roars cover. You and Scotty lead the right flank file toward the kitchen gardens. Stone walls lower there, easy to scale. The left file, horns on their helmets muzzled with felt, ghosts toward the main gatehouse. Halfway across the frosted cabbage beds, your eyes catch motion. A monk, night-robed, crossing the cloister walk with a lantern.
For a heartbeat, you see yourself in his place, shoulders hunched against wind, muttering about burst pipes or a lost psalm verse. You pray for him, but prayer in your tongue means speed. A single whistle, Hervors. The monk never screams. An arrow vines out of darkness, kisses his chest, and he sits down as though suddenly too tired to stand. Scotty plants her hands on the garden wall, vaults, lands without crunch. You follow, knees jolt but hold. Now you're inside the sacred precinct. If sacredness means anything when winter gnaws stone and men sharpen steel. The refectory windows glow faint. Your squad fans out, weapons low. Goal, reach the library, where silver clasps gleam on gospel covers and reliquaries stash finger bones of saints. In other words, portable coin. Inside the cloister garth, it's strangely mild. Walls block the worst wind, and 3 cypress trees huddle like conspirators. A fountain at center is crusted in ice so thick the saint atop seems trapped mid-benediction. You skirt shadows toward a side door banded in iron. 2 novices guard it, one drifting half asleep, the other muttering aves to keep warm. Scotty breathes once, steam pluming, then moves. Her shadow swallows the first novice. He wheezes, crumples. You clamp palm over the second's mouth, drag him into niche. Your dagger bites just enough to quiet forever. Their rosaries clack on flagstones. Wooden beads lose, perhaps, but they still roll away, sounding like dice. Door unlatches. Inside, the scriptorium smells of vellum, oak smoke, and lamp oil. Rows of reading desks under arching ribs of cedar. Candles gutter in iron trees. Illuminated pages glimmer with turquoise and crimson pigment as if still wet. You almost forget the mission. Beauty will ambush. But Scotty nudges you. She begins unlacing book straps, sliding folios and jeweled covers into a leather sack. You take the far cupboard. Reliquary boxes, gilded pyxes, a chalice thick with garnet cabochons. All secured swiftly. But trouble grows audible. Clang of iron to west, yells, Latin chants turning to panicked braying. The other file has met resistance at the dormitory block. Time narrows. You tighten sack, cinch belt, follow Scotty back toward cloister. The abbey bell shrieks. Again that cursed bronze voice, but this one you expected. You break into sprint across Garth. At the arcade mouth, 3 armed lay brothers bar exit, spears leveled. Hervor barrels from side corridor, intercepts. The first spear jab slithers past his ribs. He lops the shaft, kicks the man's knee sideways. You duck a thrust, slam axe hilt into jaw. Scotty whirls, uses sack like flail, book edges crunch skull. Lay brothers drop, breath steams bright against ink of night.
Gatehouse breached, Hervor barks, but garrison arrived, Frankish mercenaries. Figures. Gold buys faith quickly. You race after him through passageways that reek of damp wool and fear. Flames flicker ahead. Someone torched the dorm bunks. Smoke chokes corridor. You tie sleeve over mouth, push. At landing, a mercenary in mail shirt blocks stairwell, longsword drawn, helm's crest catching firelight. He speaks your tongue. Spent seasons raiding north, maybe. Back, heathen. There's tired sorrow in it. Before you answer, Scotty springs, shoulder slamming his breastplate. He staggers. You hack at sword arm. Hervor finishes with upward hook into groin. Mail rings scatter like rain on slate.
At foot of stairs, door yawns onto courtyard where chaos dances full. Longship crews clash with mercenaries, sparks fly, snow muddy with blood. The chieftain stands near wellhead, cloak singed, shouting, "Rally!" Lightning arcs inside your chest. This is the hinge rune moment. Door wide, choose.
You scan. North wall gate partially open. Beyond it, the cart track to beach. But too many foes cluster there. Instead, you point east. Brewhouse breached earlier. Wall lower, slope down to rocky shore behind Abbey. That way, you shout. Scotty nods. Whistles shrill hawk call, signaling fallback. Warriors peel toward you, cutting space. Hervor dashes ahead, severing ties on tethered mule. Beast bolts, scattering pursuers. Good. You heard 15 warriors through Brewhouse Arch, over oaken barrels foaming ale into snow. At far wall, you shove sack over first, then climb ladder propped by earlier scouts. Drop to outer slope, knees jarring on scree. Below, surf crashes only 10 spear throws away. But the cliff path is narrow, iced. One slip, you feed crabs. You send men in pairs, steady. Halfway down, arrow hail cracks off rock. Mercenaries reached the parapet. A shaft skims Scotty's calf. She curses, keeps descending. Another whistles, finds the chieftain's shoulder. He grunts, stumbles, the slope slick. You lunge, catch his wrist before gravity claims him. Together, you slide onto ledge, bruised but alive. Beach at last! Second longship, the backup, waits with crew frantic, seeing pursuit above. You shove chieftain aboard. Blood darkens his cloak. Warriors scramble. One slips, arms windmilling, but Hervor snares collar, hauls him. Scotty last, limping. Oars out, push. Arrows splash, ineffective. Range too far now. Sails unfurl, catch wind that seems conjured by panicked lungs. The Abbey bell fades behind, replaced by groans of wounded, clash memory echo, and your own heartbeat still racing like deer from wolves. But you also carry weight, sacks of gospel silver, bruise on soul, fresh tapestry of nightmares. Chieftain slumps near stern. Godi inspects wound. Arrow tore muscle, no bone. He snaps shaft, pulls head. Chieftain bites wooden dowel, but roar still bursts skyward. You grip his hand until spasm eases. Blood staunched, bandage wrapped, he grips back and whispers, "Worth the waking." Crew tallies spoils. Besides library sack, others seized altar plate, casks of wine, bolt of scarlet silk, and, odd, a reliquary finger said to be St. Cuthbert's. Hervor jokes it'll stir stew nicely. Laughter cracks tension like ice at thaw. Night deepens, stars hide. Clouds pregnant with more snow close over deck. Helmsman plots course along coast cliffs, hugging darkness. Fires ashore flare, search parties lighting beacons, but sea erases footprints. Wind veers, spray ices beard. You huddle under sailcloth with Hervor and Scotty, sharing flask of honey mead diluted to stretch supply. The Godi moves among clusters, chanting low, closing wounds with boar-fat salve. He pauses at your trio, lays rune bones on cloth.
They clatter, forming pattern that looks like hinge merged with wolf jaw. He grunts, half smile. Door that bites back, keep teeth sharp. Sleep comes in snatches, invaded by visions. The monk's lantern bobbing still, but now on a boat drifting, bell clanging from its prow, though no rope moves. The silver chalice bleeds wine that becomes seawater swarming with orca. The rune door swings open onto nothing but night wind. You wake with silent scream lodged behind teeth.
Dawn cracks leaden. Snow blankets deck, muffling world. Despite ache, chores persist. Ice pry from rigging, pump bilge. You work alongside comrades, warm through labor. Scotty's calf wound bleeds again. She lets you bind it with strip torn from silk. Let saints bless my limp, she smirks. Mid-morning, lookout spots, sails on horizon, patrol cutters, likely Frankish, drawn by beacon fires. 3, maybe 4. Your longship faster, but arrow-knocked, wind fickle. Chieftain orders rowing benches manned. You take oar, muscles whine but obey. Chant rises, stroke, stroke, hop. Water sluices, hull surges. The cutters give chase, but fall away as your prow noses into fjord mouth hidden by cliffs, safe for moment. Inside fjord shelter, crew celebrates with fire on snow shore, roasting eel and last of sausages. Wine flows from abbey cask, rich, dark, spiced with clove. Tongues loosen, laughter echoes off ice walls. Yet beneath revel, a hum of introspection. You all touched threshold last night, and every warrior measures self against shadow now visible.
The gaudy calls for deposit of fears again, silver wires on hazel wand. You shape yours into bell, but this time pierce center so it cannot ring. Control the sound, don't let it command you. Hervor forges quartz rune into wire, loops around his scar, offers blood drop as seal. Scotty twists hers into broken arrow, snaps it, hangs halves separate. Wand shakes, wires clinking like tiny shields. Wind rises, plucks notes. Some wires break free, vanish into snow swirl. Good omen, the fjord gods feasting on discarded dread.
Evening hush. You sit apart on ledge overlooking water where seals bask on floes. One lifts sleek head, meets your gaze. In its eye you see reflection, yourself bearing axes, but also lantern, bell, cross, hinge, identities mingling. You wonder if nightmares were ever foes or merely mirrors. Seal barks, dives, ripple erasing image. Footsteps crunch, the chieftain. Shoulder bandage fresh, but he moves solid. He lowers beside you, stares at ice. Many believe courage is claw, but courage, he taps his temple, is mirror. Hold it steady when monster leans close. It sees itself, not you. That frightens it more. He hands you thin strip torn from his cloak fringe, a mark of honor among fleet. You knot it to axe haft, feeling weight shift, story added. Later, under awning, you scribe runes into plank. Chronicle of raid, names of fallen, names of fears released. You're no skald, but wood remembers better than mind once ale flows.
Scotty watches, murmuring corrections on spelling. You flick shavings at her. She laughs, a surprising warm sound. Night's final watch. You volunteer again. Stars reappear. Frost paints gunwales. In the hush, you practice slow breathing taught by Seal Dream. Inhale tide, exhale bell. Somewhere beyond cliffs, enemy patrols still hunt, but see between gates you. The hinge rune glows faint behind lids, no longer spinning out of reach, but resting like coin in palm. Sea mist beads across your eyelashes as dawn stretches pale fingers over the fjord, turning the water from ink to tarnished silver. The longship lies at anchor like a resting beast, crimson and white sail furled tight, its carved dragon head nodding in the slow swell, as though it too is exhausted by last night's frenzy. No drums, no shouts, only the slap of waves against strakes, the occasional creak of hemp shrinking in the morning chill, and somewhere aft the soft snore hiccup of a warrior who discovered the monastery's wine a little too late and too deeply. You pull your cloak closer, leather still tacky where someone else's blood dried hours ago, and feel the bruise on your ribs bloom as you inhale. It aches, yes, but also anchors you. Pain is the wake-up bell you trust more than any bronze church tower. Up on the rocky ledge, a thin wisp of smoke curls from the cook fire Scotty coaxed into life moments ago. She squats by the coals, stirring a pot of barley, dried fish, and snowmelt, bruised calf propped on a driftwood log. Even from here you catch the faint smell, salt, char, the ghost of juniper she tossed in for luck. She sees you, tips her chin, wordlessly asking, "Hungry?" The answer is always yes. You make the scramble up slick stone, boots leaving half circles in powder snow, and seat yourself beside her, palms spread to the blaze. Ice numbed your fingers overnight. Heat pricks them awake with white-hot pins, and despite yourself, you hiss. Scotty's mouth twitches. "Better a hiss than a howl," she says, handing you a wooden bowl. One by one, the rest of the crew surfaces. Hervor lumbers over, helmet tucked under arm, his beard frozen into miniature icicles that clink when he laughs. He's laughing now because the Godi still hasn't shaken off the wine hangover and is trying to chant a purification hymn between gagging coughs. The chieftain emerges last, shoulder bound tight in freshly changed linen, eyes red-rimmed from pain or lack of sleep, or perhaps the recognition that leadership is a wound you never truly cauterize. He nods to you, acknowledging the way you caught his wrist on the cliff path. The gratitude is silent, but heavy as an oar. Breakfast finished, tasks unfurl like sailcloth. Check the rigging, divide the spoils, clean blades, fill water casks from the stream trickling under sheets of ice. You're assigned to the silver tally, counting chalices, patens, reliquary boxes, and the scriptorium sack you guarded. The jeweled gospel book is worth more than a merchant's lifetime earnings, but it weighs under 2 pounds. Funny how value shifts. Yesterday it was a holy text. Today it's future beer, iron, and ship repairs. You trace the parchment illumination, Mary in robes of lapis blue, face serene, lamb nestled at her feet, and wonder if the artist ever pictured his masterpiece tucked in a pirate's sea boot. Probably not. By midday, the sky bruises again, thick clouds rolling over the fjord mouth like wool unspooled. Chieftain calls council on the beach. Decision: sail west along the Scary Chain, avoid patrol cutters still sniffing near open water. Then cut south across the open sea once weather cloaks your wake. Trouble: those skerries hide reefs sharper than a warrior's wit when drunk, and currents coil like worms around them. But there's no safer option. A man at the edge of choices learns to dance with knives.
Before weighing anchor, the Godi insists on one more right. He claims he dreamt of a white wolf pacing the rail, muzzle dripping salt. Bad omen unless appeased. So he gathers the crew in a half circle, draws a spiral in the snow with his staff, and drops a single silver coin, the smallest of the loot, into the center. Payment for the guardian of unseen shoals, he murmurs. You're skeptical. Hervor rolls his eyes so hard you hear them creak. Yet even he plucks a hair from his beard, tosses it onto the coin. Tradition hooks deeper than skepticism.
Wind freshens from northeast. You shove off, oars biting the frigid water in smooth rhythm. The longship slides past basalt cliffs streaked with ice. Cormorants perched like dark-robed sentries. A hush settles, rowers saving breath, lookout scanning the channel, helmsman squinting to read water texture the way an old farmer reads cloud bellies. Your mind slips back to last night's nightmares. Monks' bells turning into sirens. Reliquary bones rattling themselves free. Abbey walls sinking into sea while chanting rose from the depths. They have not left you. They hover just beyond daylight, waiting for eyelids to flutter half-mast. You blink them away, pull harder. Mid-afternoon, the first reef appears, black fangs just under the surface, foam lacing their tips. Helmsman calls for starboard row to feather, port to backwater. The ship pirouettes past by carpal lengths. Every heartbeat rings loud enough you expect seabirds to scatter. They don't. They know this dance. 2 more reefs, and then an islet comes into view, seething with seals. Not the sleek marble eye you met in dream, but fat gray lumps barking at gulls. Scotty jokes those are the souls of monks already reincarnated, still complaining about stolen wine. You laugh, tension cracks, water splashes your face bitter and clean.
Toward dusk, snow begins, light at first, then thick flakes swirling like ash from a giant hearth. Visibility shrinks to spear length. Helmsman orders sail reefed, oars inboard. Safer to drift than ram an unseen rock. The crew huddles under walrus hide awning, sharing skins of mead. Low conversation flickering like lanterns. Some replay last night's fight, parry by parry. Others knit silence tight around themselves. The Godi takes rune bones, shakes, but they clatter listless, unwilling to speak through the storm hush. Even gods grow weary, he mutters. Night falls. Snow blankets deck, muffles world. The longship rocks gentle, caught in eddy behind islet. You volunteer again for first watch. Sleep seems slippery anyway. Hervor sits with you, sharpening axe by emberlight in a shielded lantern, sparks kissing snowflakes.
He tells tale of his first raid. Aged 15, terrified, he swung too early, killed not the enemy, but a beam. Axe lodged, broke handle. Survived by hiding under pig carcass until battle done. He chuckles now, but the memory bears a glint of shame. You share your own first terror. A training bout where elder cousin shattered your forearm. Bones set without anesthesia, only a leather strap between teeth and a song your mother crooned to drown screams. The pain became your compass. Hervor nods, pain as teacher, more faithful than any jar.
Hours glide. Snow stops. Cloud lid lifts, revealing a moon fat and yellow like melted bronze. The sea around you shivers with reflected light. Calm settles so deep even rigging stops creaking. Your eyelids droop, mind drifting toward that hinge rune again, door in darkness. Instead of wolf jaws, this time it's entwined with seal and monk's bell, all three circling. You rub eyes, stand, stomp deck to stay present.
A splash, port side prickles neck hair, too big for fish. You lean over gunwale, water black, shimmering, nothing. 2 heartbeats, then again, closer. You signal Hervor, lantern hood lifts wider. A shape surfaces, sleek, sinuous. First you think seal, but no whiskers, no bark. Another shape, and another. They glide around hull, pale bellies catching moon, backs ridged. Dolphins? So far north, odd, but they bear scars, lattice of white slashes. One bumps hull softly, as though testing. Crew stirs, murmurs.
Godi appears, eyes wide. "These are Njord's hounds," he whispers. "They guide or they drown." Chieftain, roused, grips rail, blood-stained bandage bright in moonlight. Decision time. Follow? The dolphins, or whatever they are, begin swimming away, southwest, casting wakes glittering. Helmsman shrugs. Currents unknown. Following living compasses might spare reefs. Consensus quick, oars out, silent strokes. The creatures pace you, weaving cross pattern that suggests deeper channel. Fear mixes with wonder, a new flavor, bittersweet.
Hours later, first blush of dawn hints pink on horizon. The guide beasts vanish with a final flick of tails. Ahead lies open sea, ice-free, wind steady. Morale lifts, songs break out, ragged but earnest. Even Chieftain joins, voice rough. Scotty drums on shield rim, lending rhythm. You row until arms numb, then sail hoisted, canvas snaps full. Home course. Yet storms love ambush. By midday, wind shifts south hard. Waves build, slate ridges tipped with spit. Longship heaves, mast groans. Snowflakes turn to sleet needles, lashing cheeks raw. Crew reef sail, but gust tears upper panel, canvas whipping like wounded bird. You scramble up shrouds with 2 others, fingers stiff, patch tear with ropes and patchcloth. Below, seawater sloshes midship. Bilge crew bail frantic. Helmsman fights rudder, curses drowned saints for good measure. Sky darkens mid-afternoon to near night. Thunder rolls. Lightning forks, revealing wave faces high as barn roofs. The longship climbs, tips, crashes down, wood screams.
Skadi at bow, arms spread as though challenging storms. No fear now, only wild laugh lost in wind. Suddenly, a rogue breaker slams starboard, flips over gunwale, sweeping 3 men. One vanishes outright. The other 2 cling to oarlocks. You and Hervor haul them back, muscles tearing. The chieftain crawls, barking roll call over gale. One name remains unanswered. Young Jari, first raid, good with harp. Silence around that absence, heavier than ballast. You mark it on heart.
Night again. Storm relents to heavy swell. Longship battered but afloat. Mast still upright. Sail reefed to scrap size. Crew huddles soaked, teeth chattering. Chieftain orders rotation. Sleep in shifts. Bail water continuously. You lie under awning, cloak drenched, spooning sack of relics for warmth. Sleep is thin and ragged, stitched by nightmares of Jari's harp strings snapping underwater while seal eyes watch. Bell tolls inside skull. You open eyes to blackness, unsure waking. Pre-dawn gray. Land ho! Lookout croaks. Far off, jagged line, coast of home fjord. Oars manned, each stroke pulls shore closer. At last, surf rattles pebbles under keel as ship noses into familiar inlet ringed by spruce. Villagers line shore, torches bobbing, voices carrying questions. You disembark, legs rubbery, help chieftain down. His wife rushes, gathers him, tears mixing with sea spray. Others crowd, counting returns, mourning missing.
Spoils unloaded into Longhouse. Gleam of silver under firelight wows children. Elders utter thanks to gods and cunning. The feasting begins. Venison stew, early mead, pine-smoked trout. You sit by hearth, steam rising from drying clothes. Scotty across table, leg bandaged fresh, offers half smile, the type that says, "We returned, but never fully." Hervor stands on bench, singing bawdy song about monks chasing goats, gets everyone laughing until tears.
Later, chieftain taps horn for hush. He recounts raid, names fallen. Jari the harpist, Thorkel 3 fingers, Brynjar the swift. For each a log tossed in central fire, sparks climbing smoke hole like souls ascending. You drink in their honor, mead bitter-sweet.
After speeches, Godi approaches with rune bones again. He wants to cast for nightmares. Will they linger? He shakes, drops. Bones form image of open eye over wave. Interpretation? To watch is to remember. To remember is to heal. He hands you 1 bone, engraved hinge rune merged with wolf jaw. Keep, he says. Reminder, door swings both ways. You choose when to walk through.
Feast ebbs. People drift to bed furs. You step outside, cold biting, but sky clear, strewn with stars like silver spilled from gospel cover. Sea gentle now, licking shore. You walk to water's edge, kneel, dip fingertip, whisper Jari's name, let ripple carry it. Footsteps crunch, Scotty beside you. She presses monk's lantern you took, newly filled with whale oil. Light for next crossing, she says. You hang it on belt. Dawn of new day. Village wakes to chores, nets, smithy, woodcutting. You help men sail, replace torn panel with scarlet silk from monastery. The contrast shocks eyes. War trophy turned lifeline. Children gather, ask to hear tale of sea beasts guiding ship. You tell them, add flourishes. Dolphins' teeth of silver sang hymns underwater. Their eyes widen. You realize stories grow legs faster than men row. Evening. Skald arrives, eager for news. Crew assembles, recounts raid. He scribes runes on birch bark, asks for nightmares details. Your hinge rune, chieftain's fox amber eyes, dolphin guides. He'll weave into saga, fear becomes legend, night terrors into fireside entertainment. You consent, but inside guard secret corners. The bell that rings in bone, seal eye reflection. Before sleep, Godi gathers warriors one last time at shoreline. Moon high again. He sets reliquary finger on flat stone, pours mead over it, chants, "Saint and saga alike witness our debt." Then he buries relic in sand, gift to sea and spirits. You feel weight ease off chest. Some debts repayable in strange coin. Back in longhouse bunk, you curl under furs. The hinge rune bone lies in palm. You study its lines until eyelids droop. Dreams come. This time you walk through door onto calm tide pool shore. There sits Jari, harp intact, playing tune that merges monk chant and seal song. You sit, listen. No bell tolls, no jaws snap. Peace hums like low tide. You wake at dawn, rested. Outside gulls wheel, village smoke rises. A new raid will be planned soon. Ice will thaw, sails will cry for wind. Nightmares will return, as faithful as the tide. But you carry a lantern, a rune bone, and a strip of cloak fringe. You know pain's language, but also its grammar. It can conjugate into memory, into warning, into song. If drifting through Viking seas, wrestling storms, and reshaping nightmares into sagas lulled you this far, pound that like button like it's a monastery bell you get to ring on your own terms. Smash subscribe so you're aboard for the next voyage into the strangest corridors of boring history. And drop a comment below. What's the one talisman you'd trust to carry you through the dark? Until the next long night and the next fireside, keep your axes sharp, your dreams honest, and your lanterns full. May all your doors, hinge runes and otherwise, open onto calmer waters. Skull and good sleep. Skull and good sleep.